The impossible bond. The Galactic Council had always been the symbol of power in the universe. For centuries, they ruled over countless species, ensuring that none could challenge their authority. In their eyes, humans were nothing more than an insignificant species, barely more advanced than the animals they shared their planet with. But that was about to change. On the Council's homeworld, a planet at the heart of the galaxy, the most powerful beings in the universe gathered in their grand chambers. They were discussing the rising threats to their rule, threats they were sure they could handle with ease. Their arrogance was evident. They laughed at the idea of any species being a true threat to their might. But they had not considered one thing: humans. A single human stood before them. His name was Alex. He was not a soldier nor a diplomat. He was just an ordinary human from Earth. But in his hands, he held something that could change everything. The Council's chambers were filled with beings from different corners of the galaxy, all looking at Alex with curiosity and mockery. To them, he was just another insignificant human who thought too highly of his species. He was here because, against all odds, he had somehow managed to reach their council, a feat no human had ever achieved. Yet, they didn't see any real danger in him. He was simply another fool to entertain. But Alex wasn't here for entertainment. He stepped forward, holding a strange, glowing artifact. The object shimmered with energy, its glow casting eerie shadows on the walls. The council members paused, their eyes narrowing. They recognized the artifact immediately. It was said to be the key to controlling the most dangerous creature in the galaxy, a creature so powerful that entire civilizations had fallen before it, a creature that had been lost to time, its whereabouts unknown for centuries. That creature was Zeroth, the most feared predator ever to walk the galaxy. The council laughed. The idea of a human controlling Zeroth was laughable. How could a species that barely knew how to survive in the galaxy hope to control a creature that had brought entire fleets to their knees? "You must be joking," one of the counselors sneered, his voice dripping with condescension. "Do you think we're fools? No human could ever control Zeroth. No human has even seen it in millennia." But Alex remained calm. He didn't flinch. Instead, he held the artifact higher, allowing the energy to pulse from it. "I'm not here to beg for your approval," Alex said, his voice steady and sure. "I'm here to show you the power of humanity and how we've learned to bond with forces greater than any of you could imagine." The room fell silent. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. This human, he spoke with such confidence, as if he truly believed what he was saying. Could he really control Zeroth? The council's leader, a tall, imposing figure named Torak, stood up. His eyes were filled with curiosity, but his voice was cold and commanding. "Show us, human. Show us your power." Alex nodded and stepped to the center of the chamber. With a simple motion, he activated the artifact. The glow grew brighter, and the walls of the chamber seemed to tremble. For a moment, it felt like the very fabric of reality was being altered. The air thickened with energy, and every council member could feel it. Then the roar came. It was a sound that made the room shake. It was a sound that no one in the galaxy had ever wanted to hear again. It was the roar of Zeroth. The council froze. The laughter stopped. There was no mistaking it. The beast had awoken. The roar echoed through the chamber, vibrating through their bones. And they all knew what it meant. Zeroth was not just alive, it was listening. The room was silent for a long moment, as the council members tried to process what had just happened. They had underestimated Alex. They had underestimated humanity. A single human, standing before them with an ancient artifact, had done what no one else had ever been able to do. He had brought Zeroth back, and it seemed that the creature was not only alive but loyal to this human. Alex turned to face the council, his eyes sharp and focused. "You laugh at us," he said. "You think we're weak. But we have powers you cannot begin to understand. We've learned to tame the wildest forces, to bond with them in ways you never thought possible. Torak's eyes narrowed. He didn't know whether to be amazed or terrified. This human had just done what no one had ever believed was possible. It was as though he had unlocked some ancient secret, one that could give humanity the power to rule the galaxy. "What will you do now?" Torak asked, his voice cold but tinged with fear. "I will show you," Alex replied. He gestured to the sky, and suddenly, the image of Zarath appeared in the stars, visible to everyone in the room. The massive creature's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and it loomed over the galaxy like a force of nature. It was a predator, a hunter unlike anything the Council had ever seen, and it was under Alex's control. The Council members exchanged uncertain glances. They had thought themselves invincible. They had thought no one could ever challenge them. But now, they weren't so sure. "You've awakened a force that could destroy everything," Torak said, his voice filled with a rare sense of unease. Alex didn't flinch. "No," he said calmly. "I've awakened a force that will change everything. But it will not destroy the galaxy. It will only make it stronger." The Council members were stunned. They had no idea what to make of this human, but one thing was certain. Humanity was not as weak as they had once thought. And Alex was not just a man. He was a symbol of something far greater. In that moment, the balance of power in the galaxy shifted. The Council was no longer the undisputed ruler. A new force had arrived, and it was led by a human who had bonded with the universe's deadliest predator. What would the Council do next? Would they fight against humanity, or would they bow before its strength? The impossible bond had been forged, and nothing would ever be the same again. The news of what had just occurred in the Galactic Council's chamber spread quickly across the galaxy. For weeks, the Council had been ridiculing humanity, dismissing them as a primitive species with no real power. They were sure that their reign over the galaxy was unshakable. But now, everything had changed. Across the galaxy, news feeds buzzed with reports of a human who had bonded with Zarath, the galaxy's deadliest predator. No one had ever thought such a bond was possible. No one had ever dreamed that a species so young and fragile could connect with a beast so powerful it had wiped out entire fleets with ease. Yet Alex, a simple human from Earth, had done just that, and in the most unexpected way possible. On many worlds, the response was a mix of fear and disbelief. The citizens of the galaxy couldn't understand how one human could have achieved such a feat. Was it a trick? A lie? Or had humanity truly uncovered something far beyond the comprehension of the galaxy's most advanced species? In a far-off corner of the galaxy, on a lush and vibrant planet, a group of alien researchers watched with wide eyes. They had spent their entire lives studying the legends of Zarath, piecing together fragments of ancient texts, hoping to understand how such a beast could exist. But no one had ever gotten close to the creature. It had always been a myth, a story that no one truly believed. Until now. "I don't understand," one of the researchers, a tall, four-armed alien named Kunar, muttered. "How could a human have done this?" The records, they said Zarath was untamable, impossible to control. His colleague, a smaller alien with translucent skin named Nilla, shook her head in confusion. "It defies everything we know. It's not just that he found Zarath. He made it obey him. The creature has been silent for centuries, a ghost story in the minds of many. But now it roars to life." They both looked at the screen in front of them, which displayed a hologram of Zarath's massive, glowing eyes. The beast was like nothing they had ever seen. Its scales glowed with an eerie light, and its massive fangs could tear through any material in seconds. The images showed it circling a small planet, its eyes fixed on something in the distance, something they couldn't see, but the human could. Kinar's voice was thick with disbelief. No species could control it. No species could ever command such a creature. Except. Nilla stared at him. Except the human. But how? The question echoed across the galaxy. Every species, every researcher, and every military strategist began to wonder, how had Alex done it? How had he gained control over something so wild, so dangerous? Back in the heart of the galaxy, the Galactic Council was in turmoil. The once unquestioned rulers of the galaxy were no longer certain of their own supremacy. The event had shaken them to their core. Torak, the council's leader, stood before the council members, his eyes filled with a rare form of unease. For the first time in many years, he wasn't certain of what to do. "What do we know about this human?" Torak asked, his voice cold but with a slight edge of worry. "How did he do this?" A younger council member, a sleek insectoid species named Exilara, stepped forward. "We've tried to trace his origins. His name is Alex, a human from Earth. His people were considered insignificant. Their world was isolated for centuries. But now, he has done something we believed impossible." Torak frowned, his sharp eyes narrowing. "Impossible? Yes, it's hard to believe. A human bonding with Zeroth. We must have him brought here immediately. We need answers." Another counselor, a hulking being with rock-like skin named Gorek, growled softly. "Why would he bond with Zeroth? What is his aim? Is he a threat?" Torak looked at the holographic display of Zeroth, its glowing eyes staring back at them. "If Zeroth listens to this human, we cannot simply dismiss him. We must understand why he has awakened the beast." The council members exchanged uneasy glances. They had always ruled the galaxy through fear and control. But this human, Alex, had shattered their belief in their own invincibility. No one had ever been able to control Zeroth. And yet here he was, bending the beast to his will. At that very moment, on the distant world of Earth, Alex stood at the edge of a massive, ancient spaceport. His fingers still tingled from his connection with Zeroth. He had done what no one thought was possible, but there was no time to rest on his victory. The galaxy was watching, and with every passing second, the pressure grew. He could feel it in the air, the fear, the disbelief, the growing sense of panic from the Galactic Council. But Alex wasn't afraid. He had made his stand, and now he had to follow through. If he wanted to protect his world and his people, he would need to prove that humanity was not a species to be taken lightly. "What will they do?" He wondered aloud as he gazed up at the stars. "The Council is powerful, but they can't stop us now. Zeroth is with us." His mind raced. The Galactic Council had made one fatal mistake. They had underestimated humans. Now, Alex had to decide how to play his next move. There were enemies out there, alien species who would take advantage of any weakness in the Council. The galaxy was about to change, and humanity would have to rise to the challenge. There was no turning back now. Back in the Council chamber, the mood had shifted. The fear of the unknown had taken root. They had never considered humans a threat before, but now they were beginning to see the truth. Humanity was not the weak, isolated species they had once believed. The power of the human race had just been proven, and it was undeniable. "What now?" one of the counselors whispered. Torak turned to face them, his eyes hardening. "We prepare for what is to come. We cannot let one human and his bond with Zeroth shake our control. But we must be careful. The galaxy has just changed, and we need to be ready for what this human will do next." The fear was clear now. The Galactic Council was no longer the most powerful force in the galaxy. There was something new, and they didn't know if they could stop it. Alex had shown them the impossible. And now they were left with one burning question. What would he do next? The tension across the galaxy was palpable. Every corner of the universe was now buzzing with the news of Alex and Zeroth. What had once been dismissed as a myth, a far-fetched story from ancient texts, was now a terrifying reality. Humans had done the impossible. They had bonded with the galaxy's deadliest predator. And no one knew what that meant for the future. Alex stood at the spaceport on Earth, his gaze fixed on the dark sky above. The stars twinkled like distant beacons, but he felt far from comforted. The Council, with all its might, was coming. They were not just angry, they were scared. And when the powerful get scared, they strike. He clenched his fists, his mind racing. This wasn't just about proving humanity's strength anymore. It was about survival. Zaroth had bonded with him, and in doing so, it had awakened something much bigger than just the beast. It had shaken the galaxy's foundations. The Galactic Council would not take this lightly. They would retaliate. They had to. On distant worlds, the Council's fleet was preparing. Ships, sleek and powerful, hummed to life as military leaders met in secret chambers. The Council's forces were vast and feared, but for the first time in centuries, they weren't so sure of themselves. In one of the Council's flagship warships, Torak, the leader of the Galactic Council, paced nervously. His usual calm demeanor was slipping, replaced by a hard edge of worry. No one had ever been able to control Zaroth, not even the greatest warriors in the galaxy. But Alex, a human, had done it. The beast was under his control, a creature capable of annihilating entire planets with a single roar. The implications were far-reaching. If humans could bond with such creatures, what other unknown forces did they possess? Could they command other beasts of legend? Could they turn the tide of galactic wars with creatures like Zaroth? The Council had no answers, and that terrified them. "We cannot let this stand," Torak muttered, his voice low and menacing. "We cannot allow humanity to grow stronger." Across the galaxy, an alliance of alien species began to form. Rumors spread quickly of a human who had tamed Zaroth, and many species who had long suffered under the Council's rule saw a new opportunity. If humanity could control such beasts, they might be the key to overthrowing the Council's dominance. On a distant moon, a rebel leader named Rhinox, once an ally of the Galactic Council, stared at the holographic projection of Alex and Zaroth. Rhinox had fought in the Council's wars, seen the destruction they left behind. But this was something new, something dangerous. If the humans could tame beasts like Zaroth, they would be unstoppable. And for the first time in years, Rhinox allowed himself to believe in a different future. He leaned forward, his sharp, reptilian eyes fixed on the hologram. "If this human is as powerful as the rumors say, maybe we can join forces. We need to act before the Council does." Across the galaxy, many other factions began to think the same way. The balance of power was shifting, and the galaxy's rulers, the Galactic Council, were starting to feel that their grip was slipping. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Alex was preparing for what was to come. The bond he had formed with Zaroth had not been easy. It had taken every ounce of strength, willpower, and understanding he had. But now, he knew something the rest of the galaxy didn't. Zaroth was more than just a beast. It was a symbol, a signal to the galaxy that humanity was not as weak as they had believed. They had their power, and they were ready to use it. Alex turned to face his crew, a diverse group of humans who had rallied around him in the wake of the attack. They had witnessed the impossible happen and stood beside him, ready for the challenges ahead. "Listen up," Alex said, his voice steady and calm, yet carrying the weight of the responsibility now resting on his shoulders. "The Council will come for us. We know that. They'll try to break us, to crush us before we can stand tall. But we have something they don't. We have Zaroth, and we have each other." His words carried a heavy meaning. It wasn't just the beast that was on their side. It was the spirit of humanity. The courage, the resilience, the drive to survive and protect their home. The Galactic Council had made a grave mistake in underestimating humanity. They had thought they could control everything, but they had never counted on the will of a species that would fight for its survival at any cost. "What's our next move?" one of his crew members, a skilled pilot named Sarah, asked. Alex looked at her, his eyes filled with determination. "We strike first. We can't wait for them to come to us. We'll show them that humanity is not a species to be taken lightly. We'll take the fight to them." The crew nodded in agreement. There was no turning back now. They had made their stand, and with Zaroth by their side, they were ready for whatever the galaxy threw at them. Meanwhile, Torak and the Galactic Council were finalizing their plans. They knew that Alex and Zaroth represented a massive threat. The Council's power was being challenged in ways they had never thought possible, but they had their own forces to rely on. Their fleets were massive, their weapons deadly. They wouldn't go down easily. "We'll need everything we have to crush them," Torak said, turning to his advisors. "Prepare the fleets, gather the resources. We'll end this human threat once and for all." But even as they spoke, they knew that something had shifted. The galaxy was no longer under their total control. The war for dominance had begun, and no one knew who would emerge victorious. The storm was coming, and neither Alex nor the Galactic Council was prepared for what lay ahead. But one thing was certain: the galaxy was about to witness a battle unlike any other, one that would determine the future of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. The galaxy was on edge. Tensions were high as the Council's forces gathered, preparing for what they saw as the final confrontation with humanity. Alex and his crew knew they had no choice but to strike fast before the Galactic Council could crush them under their might. The stakes were higher than ever. Earth's survival depended on their success. Alex stood in the war room of the human flagship, the Resolute. It was a massive ship built from the same old relics that had been laughed at just weeks earlier. But now, those same warships were humanity's last hope. The once-forgotten fleet roared to life as if it had been waiting for this moment. "Zaroth is ready," said Sarah, the pilot, her voice steady despite the growing tension. "We've run the simulations. If we time this right, we can hit their flank before they even know what's happening." "Good," Alex replied, his mind focused. "We need to hit them fast and hard. They've underestimated us for far too long. But we can't waste time. If we give them a chance to regroup, they'll destroy us." The plan was simple but risky. Humanity would strike with everything they had, sending their warships to surprise the Galactic Council, using their own knowledge of the ancient fleet's hidden capabilities. But there was one thing they hadn't accounted for: Zaroth. The beast they had bonded with, the universe's deadliest predator, was now their secret weapon. Alex's thoughts wandered back to the first time he'd encountered Zaroth, when it had been just another terrifying force of nature. Back then, no one could have predicted that the beast would not only follow him, but bond with him. They were a team now, something no one in the galaxy could have prepared for. He paced the room, his mind working through every possible outcome. "Sarah, you're in command of the fighters. I need the fleet to stay in close formation, so we can hit them with everything at once. We can't afford to make mistakes." Sarah nodded. "Understood, Captain. The pilots are ready. We've trained for this, and we've got Zaroth's backup. Keep your eyes on the enemy fleet, no matter what," Alex added. "They'll try to break us apart. Stick together, and we'll win." Meanwhile, aboard the Council's flagship, the mood was entirely different. Torak and his advisors were huddled around a large holographic display, watching as their fleet prepared for the strike on Earth. The powerful warships, dark and sleek, were poised to make their move. Torak's face was hard, his features grim as he looked at the map of their enemy's location. "The humans may have their surprise, but they will not win. We will crush them. The fleet is unstoppable." But deep down, Torak couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. The way Zaroth had bonded with Alex, the way humanity had stood its ground. It was unlike anything he had expected. The Council had dealt with threats before, but never with such unpredictability. "We have the advantage," Torak continued, though his voice carried a slight edge of doubt. "We will not underestimate them again. Prepare the attack." The moment of truth was drawing closer. Both sides were ready for battle, but neither knew how it would unfold. As the first of the Council's ships slipped into hyperspace, heading for Earth, Alex's fleet made its move. The Resolute and the rest of humanity's ships emerged from hyperspace first, catching the Council by surprise. Their fleet was enormous, a dazzling display of firepower, and for a moment, the space around them seemed to crackle with anticipation. But just as quickly, the human ships formed into a tight formation, their weapons primed. "On my mark," Alex said, his voice cutting through the tension in the war room. "This is it." The ships of the Galactic Council emerged shortly afterward, their advanced sensors detecting the human fleet, but not fully understanding the power they were up against. In the distance, the Resolute appeared like a small speck of light, surrounded by a ring of ships that were all former relics, vessels that had been thought of as nothing more than scrap metal. But humanity had brought them back to life, and with them, they would show the galaxy that the human spirit was far from dead. Alex looked to the skies. Zerath was out there too. The beast, once a myth, now an integral part of humanity's military force. It was time to unleash the creature that could wipe out entire fleets with a single strike. Suddenly, the first shots rang out. Bright beams of light pierced the darkness, and the battle began. The Galactic Council's ships fired first, launching a barrage of energy blasts that tore through space. The Resolute and the other ships of humanity's fleet returned fire, their old weapons now enhanced with cutting-edge technology. The once dilapidated warships were proving far more deadly than the Council had ever anticipated. Alex's voice crackled through the communication channels. "All ships, engage. Focus on the enemy flagship. We need to take out their command structure." Zerath, circling high above, let out a terrifying roar, one that shook the very stars. It was a sound that sent shivers down the spines of even the most battle-hardened soldiers. The beast descended with unmatched speed, ripping through the Council's forces with a fury that no one had ever seen before. Ships were torn apart as Zerath's massive claws slashed through their hulls, leaving nothing but twisted metal and burning wreckage. The galaxy's deadliest predator, once feared and legendary, was now part of humanity's arsenal, and the Council had no idea how to stop it. But even as the battle raged on, Alex knew that this was just the beginning. They had won the first few skirmishes, but the war was far from over. The Council would not give up easily, but humanity had something they never expected: unity, determination, and the strength of a bond that had been formed against all odds. The Resolute and its crew fought back with everything they had, but the Council's fleet wasn't finished. The war for Earth's future had only just begun. The battle raged on, the void of space now filled with the flashes of explosions, energy beams, and the deafening roar of Zerath as he tore through the Galactic Council's fleet. The unexpected ferocity of the human counterattack was shaking the Council to its core. The once untouchable force was faltering, their plans unraveling in the face of an enemy they had dismissed for so long. But Alex knew this was not the time to celebrate. The first wave was successful, but the Council's fleet was vast, and their commanders were calculating. They would regroup, and when they did, they would hit harder. "We need to push harder, now," Alex ordered, his voice firm but filled with determination. His crew was already on edge from the earlier battles, but they had no choice. The survival of Earth depended on their next move. Sarah, the pilot, nodded as she steered the Resolute toward the heart of the battle. "We've got their attention now, Captain, but they're starting to close in on us. We need to break their formation before they regroup." "Agreed," Alex said, standing tall despite the pressure. "Target their command ships. If we take them out, their entire fleet will fall apart." The Resolute and its fleet of warships moved quickly, breaking the Galactic Council's lines. The enemy ships tried to close in on them, but Alex's strategy was working. They had to strike with precision, using the element of surprise as their greatest weapon. Far above the chaos, Zerath swooped down again, a blur of power and fury. His massive form darted between enemy vessels, tearing them apart with terrifying ease. Ships that had once been part of the most advanced fleet in the galaxy were now nothing more than scrap metal, drifting through the void. The beast, once thought to be an uncontrollable force, was now a vital part of humanity's arsenal. Every time Zaroth roared, a new wave of destruction followed. But just as Alex began to believe that victory was within reach, the Galactic Council made their move. Incoming. Sarah's voice came over the comms, strained. They're launching reinforcements. A second wave is on the way. Alex gritted his teeth. We can't let them regroup. Prepare to fire everything we have left. We hold nothing back. A new wave of enemy ships arrived in a blur, their sleek forms cutting through the stars like a deadly swarm. The Council's forces were bringing in heavier ships, reinforcements that were more advanced and more powerful than anything Alex's fleet had faced before. We're outnumbered, one of the crew members said, his voice filled with worry. There's no way we can win against this many. Alex turned sharply, his gaze hard. We've been underestimated before. Now it's our turn. We fight, or we die trying. Keep the pressure on them. The Resolute fired its weapons once again, energy blasts rippling through the void. But even as they pressed forward, the tide of the battle seemed to shift in the Council's favor. Their new reinforcements were overwhelming. And then, amidst the chaos, something unexpected happened. A blinding flash of light appeared in the distance. Bright, intense, and unlike anything anyone had seen before. The Galactic Council's reinforcements were suddenly caught in a massive explosion, their ships turning into burning wreckage before they even had a chance to retaliate. Alex's crew stared in disbelief as the flash faded. Then, from the wreckage of the Council's ships, a new figure emerged. An enormous, dark warship, its design unfamiliar to all who saw it. That's impossible, Sarah muttered. That ship, that design, it's human. Alex's heart skipped a beat. What? How? The massive warship, forged from the same ancient fleet, but now with a new power, had emerged from the shadows. It wasn't just a relic, it was the ultimate weapon, the culmination of years of research and forgotten technology. Humanity had done it. They had unlocked the power of the lost fleet. The crew of the Resolute watched in awe as the warship came to life, its weapons systems activating, the energy of an entire fleet coursing through its ancient hull. This was the moment that would change everything. The unexpected weapon humanity had unleashed had the power to wipe out the entire Galactic Council fleet in one strike. Get ready, everyone, Alex said, his voice filled with a fierce, determined calm. We've got the Council on the ropes. Now, we end this. The new human warship opened fire, and the stars around it lit up in a fiery explosion of energy. One by one, the Council's ships were torn apart, their once strong formations reduced to dust and debris. But the battle was not yet won. The Galactic Council was not the type to surrender easily. They had been humiliated before, but they would fight until the very end. Alex knew the fight for Earth's future was far from over. But now, with their new weapon in play, humanity had tipped the scales. The balance of power had shifted, and the Galactic Council would have to decide how far they were willing to go to maintain their dominance over the galaxy. Zaroth let out another deafening roar, the sound of victory, or perhaps the beginning of a new, even greater war. The battle had turned in humanity's favor, but the fight was far from over. The appearance of the new warship, a product of humanity's lost fleet, had struck a severe blow to the Galactic Council's confidence. They could see the tide of the conflict shifting, their once dominant position weakening by the second. Alex stood at the helm of the Resolute, watching the explosion of chaos through the observation window. The distant flashes of energy blasts, the metallic wreckage of alien warships drifting in the void. It was almost too surreal. The once unbeatable Galactic Council fleet was crumbling, its ships vanishing into space like so much debris. But Alex knew better than to celebrate. The Council wasn't known for giving up easily. They would regroup, they would retaliate, and they would strike back harder than before. He couldn't afford to let his guard down. Captain, Sarah's voice cut through the tension. We've got a new problem. The Council's mobilizing a core fleet, and they're bringing in something big, bigger than anything we've faced so far. Alex's eyes narrowed. He had expected this. The Galactic Council's leaders were not the type to be intimidated. They would send their most dangerous weapons now, the ones they had kept in reserve, waiting for a moment like this. "Bring us closer to the front lines," Alex ordered, his voice steady. "We'll hit them before they can build up any more momentum." The Resolute surged forward, leading the charge as the rest of humanity's fleet followed. But as they drew closer to the heart of the Council's forces, a new sight emerged. Out of the darkness of space, something massive loomed on the horizon, bigger than any warship Alex had seen, a gargantuan battle station bristling with weapons. "That's their flagship," Sarah said, her voice tense. "It's their last-ditch effort. If we don't take that thing down, they'll tear us apart." Alex could see the outline of the flagship, dark and menacing, with lines of energy crackling across its surface. Its massive guns aimed at humanity's forces, charging up for a devastating strike. He gripped the armrest of his chair, his gaze hardening. "We don't have the luxury of time. We hit it with everything we've got." The Resolute and the rest of humanity's fleet fired at once, unleashing a torrent of energy blasts that streaked through the darkness toward the Council flagship. The flagship's massive shields flared as they absorbed the onslaught, but Alex could see cracks beginning to form in its defenses. This was it, the moment that could determine the fate of the galaxy. "Target its core reactors," Alex ordered. "Take out the heart of the ship. That's the only way we're getting through this." The Resolute veered toward the flagship's exposed weak spot, and the crew fought with everything they had. The ship rocked as enemy fire slammed into them, the hull shuddering with the impact. The shields were holding, barely. But Alex knew that each hit brought them closer to victory. Zarath's roar echoed through the comms. The massive creature had joined the fray once more, lashing out at the Council's ships with brutal force. His enormous form was like a living weapon, tearing through enemy lines with terrifying speed. The Council had underestimated the beast, and now it was paying the price. As the Resolute drew closer to the flagship, Alex could feel the heat of the battle intensifying. The flagship's weapons fired again, but this time they missed. They were starting to fall apart under the combined pressure of humanity's firepower and Zarath's wrath. The Council was losing its grip on the fight. "Firing in 5 seconds," Sarah called out. Alex's pulse quickened. The flagship was within range now, its weak spots all but exposed. This would be their final push. "Prepare to fire everything we've got," Alex said, his voice steady. "Target the core." The crew, though exhausted from the long battle, was united in their mission. They'd come this far, and they couldn't stop now. Every person on board, from the gunners to the engineers, knew that humanity's fate depended on what came next. Sarah fired the first shot, a powerful blast from the Resolute's main cannon. The beam cut through the darkness, striking the flagship's reactor core with pinpoint accuracy. The flagship's shields flared again, but they were no match for the intensity of the blast. The core of the ship trembled, and for a brief moment, there was a flicker of hope in Alex's chest. Then the flagship exploded. A massive shockwave rippled through space, a blinding burst of light tearing apart the enemy ship. The force of the explosion sent smaller debris scattering, and the Resolute was rocked by the blast. "We did it," Sarah breathed, disbelief in her voice. "We actually did it." But Alex was already looking beyond the destruction. The Galactic Council's forces were not entirely gone. Their remaining ships scattered, regrouping at a distance, preparing for their next move. It wasn't over yet. "We've taken down their flagship," Alex said, his eyes hardening. "But they'll come for us again. We can't stop now." The battle was far from over. The Galactic Council would not surrender easily. But humanity had taken its first decisive victory. The tables had turned, and the Council would have to reckon with a force they had long underestimated. Alex looked out at the stars. The fight for Earth, for the future of humanity, had only just begun. But for the first time, he felt a flicker of hope. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity once, but now they were learning the hard way. Humanity was not done. The fight would continue. And this time, the stakes were higher than ever before. The stars burned bright in the vast expanse of space, but in Alex's heart, there was a quiet unease. The battle had been won, yes, but it was not the victory he had hoped for. The Galactic Council had lost a massive fleet, including their flagship, but their forces were still out there, lurking in the shadows. They had only begun to understand the full scale of humanity's power. As the Resolute slowly drifted through space, the crew worked tirelessly to assess the damage. The atmosphere on board was tense, the adrenaline of battle still fresh in their minds. Everyone knew that the next steps would be critical. They had gained a powerful advantage, but one misstep could cost them everything.